requiring newborn screening for congenital heart disease?
Senator Mann?
Yes, that's the Paul Sachs American Heart Association is in favor of it. Excuse me, I have a cold. You know, I'm going to be a grandma in July, and you're certainly hoping your children come home from the hospital that they're healthy, but when you're finding out that 30% of our children are dying from congenital heart disease, and we can do something about it that's invasive and fairly expensive, I think we need to take that initiative.
Is it 30%?
It's about 30%
of those who die.
Of those who die.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it would be a mandate that the test take place?
Yes.
At that time. Would you consider making it optional or adding in how will it be paid for? Or will it be?
The state will pay for it. Or the insurance company.
It is I don't know if you're familiar with the pulse ox test. If you've been in the hospital, it's the little thing you stick over your finger.
It's on just for like a minute.
And it's essentially a best practice issue that they ought to be doing. I know they didn't do it in my case when my son was born with cleft palate until they started seeing blue. And frankly, that's when they put it on there and realized they had a problem and then identified the soft cleft palate issue. And so it's not something that's an expense per se. It's just making sure the procedures are followed and that the Heart Association believes it will help identify and frankly correct a problem. It frankly probably is best practices or will be best practices. But it's one of those things that from a public policy standpoint we need to encourage and support. Other questions?
Senate Bill 9, how does that interact with the implementation of the Affordable Care Act here in Ohio?
Senator Bacon Senator Bill, that is the Navigator bill. There is a similar bill over in the House. This is one being encouraged by the Department of Insurance. And what it does is try and set the ground rules and the benchmarks for the Health Exchange Navigator entities. And from that perspective, it certainly is part of the implementation structure that's required by the Obamacare Act. However, if it's not done, it will undercut the current insurance agency structure in Ohio. And so this is one of those things we're trying to do to make healthcare affordable and available without unnecessarily undercutting the system that we currently use to deliver health insurance in the state. It's something the Department of Insurance and the Lieutenant Governor feels very strongly about, and frankly it makes good sense. What we're going to do is to define what a navigator is. And currently the concern is that we want to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, but they're not entering into the environment to try and actually offer insurance products. And so that's essentially the navigator nature of the bill.
Can you talk a little more about the regulatory streamlining, what kind
Sure.
of things you have in mind?
Sure. That's the regulatory reform structure. I'm going to ask Senator LaRose to step up. It is a follow-on, I call it Regulatory Reform 2.0, but it's a follow-on of what we did a few years ago for the Regulatory Reform Task Force, and Senator LaRose is carrying that bill.
Yeah, and this is the natural extension of Senate Bill 2 from the 129th GA built on that. And really, my involvement in this is from my time as chair of JCAR last year and being involved in that process. And we wanted to improve and strengthen some of the protections that we have for regulatory reform. A few of the things that the bill does is it makes sure that 5-year rule review is subject to CSIO scrutiny. That's those rules that are required to be brought back every 5 years to take a look at and make sure that they're still relevant. And it would require the best tool that we have, which is the Common Sense Initiative Office, to evaluate those and make sure that they're doing the right thing and protecting Ohioans, but doing so in a way that doesn't unnecessarily hurt business growth in the state. One of the other things that we're doing in the bill is decoupling this connection between fine revenue and an agency's budget. Now, we give a number of years for that to take place for the next biennium, not this biennium, because there'll have to be an adjustment to the way the agencies do their budget requests. But we don't believe that there should be a connection between how many fines you levy against a particular business or industry and how your budget bottom line looks. Those monies should go into the GRF and not into the budget of an agency. Another thing that we do is we give JCAR the ability to proactively refer a rule to CSIO. If a rule has not gone through that process, JCAR would be given now an additional opportunity. Right now they have a very terminal action that they can take. JCAR can either allow the rule to take effect or JCAR can invalidate the rule and then it's gone. But this would be a middle road. If a rule comes up that is questionable, that JCAR as a committee, as a legislative committee wants to know more about, we can vote as a committee to refer that to CSI to get more scrutiny. And perhaps the thing that I'm most excited about is the creation of Rule Watch Ohio, which is a website that we've actually already been working on through Legislative Information Services to create a more accessible way for the public to keep track of rulemaking in Ohio. Right now, if you sign up for the email list, you kind of get deluged with hundreds of different rules, and you can't pick through what it is that pertains to your industry or your interest. What Rule Watch would do is create a much more focused way for someone in Ohio to say, I want to know about rules that pertain to my industry, and it gives them a chance to interact on those rules and really encourage the public to get more involved in the process.
Other questions?
Actually, while you're up there, Frank, could you talk a little bit more about the military employer assistance?
Yeah, this is a matter that's been encouraged by the United States Defense Department for a number of years. Right now, when a military family is transferred, which is common in the military lifestyle, currently in Ohio, we only give them two options. Their options are to geographically separate the family, meaning the spouse remains behind and keeps his or her job while the service member moves to the next duty assignment. That's not a tenable situation and not something that we want to force our military families to do. The only other choice is that you keep the family intact and give up half the family's income potentially when the spouse has to quit his or her job to accompany the military member. 44 other states have done this, so Ohio is now at the wrong end of the math on catching up to this. And furthermore, if we're going to make an argument to the United States Defense Department that they should put their most important assets in the state of Ohio, and of course that's their people, then we need to show them in Washington and at the United States Defense Department that we're going to take care of those military families while they're here. That means keeping Rickenbacker Strong and Wright Pat and DSCC and Defense Finance in Cleveland and the Air Base in the Youngstown area, all of the federal military installations that are here. If we're going to make an argument for keeping those strong, then we've got to be able to demonstrate that we're going to take good care of those military families, as 44 other states have done.
So this would apply to families that, I guess, move into Ohio, assignments in Ohio?
That would be, it would be families that are moving out of Ohio. And so there's a reciprocal, obviously, with families that are being transferred from another state into here. So if you had a job in Ohio and you're moving to your next, if your spouse had a job in Ohio and you're serving in the military and you're moved on to your next duty assignment, they would be able to collect that unemployment insurance, as would be the case with any other involuntary separation from a job. And that's all we're saying with this bill, is that this is an involuntary separation from a job. It's not something that they're doing because they want to quit their job. They're doing it because they're moving to be with their family as they are able to do it.
One of the things that makes this even more interesting in that bill is that it's a relatively small number of Ohioans each year who find themselves in that situation. But it's the right thing to do to take care of. And that's what this bill really stands for. In addition to bringing us in compliance with the Department of Defense standards, we have a very strong military presence in the state, whether, as Frank mentioned, it's a Rickenbacker here in this area, or Wright Pat down in my area, or fill in all around the state. We certainly want to make sure we're taking care of those folks who support a very strong component of Ohio. And so this is one of those things we're just doing because it's the right thing.